All right, so if you're studying for your PMP, you've probably stared at those massive spreadsheets of Procurement ITTOs, the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, and just felt that wave of dread wash over you. It feels like this impossible memorization task, right? But what if I told you memorization is exactly the wrong way to go about it?
The biggest mistake most PMP candidates make is trying to brute force this stuff. They treat the ITTOs like a giant deck of flashcards, just a static set of facts to cram into their brain before exam day. But that approach isn't just inefficient, it's a total recipe for failure, because it completely misses the point of what's actually happening.
And this quote just gets right to the heart of it. ITTOs are not just administrative busy work, they are the actual operational gears of a successful project. Trying to memorize them is like memorizing the names of all the parts in an engine without having a clue how they work together to make the car actually move. It's completely useless in the real world. So in this explainer, we're going to tear this whole thing down and rebuild it the right way. We'll start with why that memorization trap is so dangerous. Then we'll shift our thinking to see a dynamic flow. We'll walk through a real case study, nail down some core PMP exam logic, and then finish up with 5 key pillars that will lock this new understanding in for good. Okay, this right here, this is the crucial mental shift. We've got to stop seeing ITTOs as these separate, static lists of items. Instead, we're going to see them for what they really are, a continuous, logical process where information is born, transformed, and ultimately put to work. So what do I mean by this flow of information? Well, think of procurement as a journey. A high-level idea doesn't just magically turn into a finished delivered product. No way. It has to travel through planning, selection, and control. And at each one of those steps, data is getting processed and refined. The ITTOs, they're just the roadmap for that journey. The key to unlocking this whole flow is to ask this one simple question for every single process. See, every process in project management exists to solve a very specific problem. If you can understand the problem, then the inputs, tools, and outputs you need to solve it suddenly make perfect sense. And this slide really boils it all down to 3 core problems. When we're in plan procurement, we're solving the what to buy and how problem. Then in conduct procurements, we're solving the who's the best vendor problem. And finally, in control procurements, we're solving the are they actually delivering problem. It really is that straightforward when you look at it this way. Now, to really get the mechanics of this flow, let's use a super simple metaphor. Think of inputs as the fuel for your engine. You can't make a good decision in a vacuum, right? You need stuff like the project management plan, the risk register. These are the raw materials that actually power the whole process. Okay, so if the inputs are the fuel, then the tools and techniques are the engine itself. This is where all the magic happens. This is where the transformation happens. Tools like a make-or-buy analysis or bidder conferences, they take that fuel, that raw information, and they process it into something new and incredibly valuable. And finally, of course, the outputs are the product that comes out of that engine. A procurement statement of work, a selected seller, an accepted deliverable. These are the tangible results you get from processing your inputs with the right tools. It's a really simple system. Fuel goes in, the engine runs, and a product comes out. Okay, theory is great, but let's move from the abstract to the concrete. We're going to apply this flow logic to our case study of building that high-rise office tower. Let's actually watch how data moves through this system to get something done, like installing the electrical grid. So we kick things off in the plan procurement phase. We take our foundational documents, the project plan and the charter, as our inputs. We use the tool of a make-or-buy analysis, and we decide, yep, we need to hire an external firm for this. The key outputs from this stage are a super detailed statement of work, or SOW, and the overall procurement plan. And now you can really see the flow happening. Those outputs from the last phase, the statement of work, and the procurement plan, they become the main inputs right here in the conduct procurements phase. We use tools like bidder conferences to find the absolute best vendor. And what comes out? A selected seller and a legally binding agreement. See? The information is just flowing from one step to the next. And to complete the journey, that signed agreement becomes the key input for our control phase. We use tools like inspections and audits to monitor the work and make sure it matches the contract. And the final outputs are accepted deliverables, the thing we paid for, and critical work performance information, or WPI, which tells us if we're on track. It's just one continuous logical flow from start to finish. All right, now that we really understand the flow, let's zero in on a few high-value insights that pop up all the time and are often misunderstood on the PMP exam. This is where thinking in terms of flow gives you a massive advantage over everyone else. This slide highlights something absolutely critical: the transformation of data. So a vendor gives you raw work performance data, like we worked 100 hours. It's just a fact. You use a tool like data analysis to turn that into work performance information, which adds context, like we are 10% behind schedule. And if that variance is not okay, the final result is a change request to take action and get back on track. So here's a classic exam style question for you. A project manager develops an independent cost estimate. Sometimes it's called a should cost estimate, way before any vendors have even submitted their proposals. Why on earth would they do that? The crucial point here, and this is the PMP logic you need to know, is that it's not for setting the budget or for negotiation. It's a sanity check on your statement of work. Think about it. If a bid comes in 50% lower than your estimate, that's a huge red flag that the vendor probably misunderstood the SOW completely. This tool helps you validate that the bids are even in the right ballpark before you ever start talking price. Another common point of confusion is the difference between an audit and a review. It's simple when you think about focus. A performance review focuses on the seller. The question is, are they on track? But a procurement audit focuses on your process. The question is, did our system for planning and selecting vendors work? The audit's goal is to improve your own system for the future. So, to wrap all this up and make sure it really sticks, let's summarize this entire concept into 5 simple, powerful pillars. If you can just remember these 5 things, you've totally mastered the logic of procurement flow. First up, pillar 1, inputs are the foundation. You just can't make procurement decisions in a bubble. The project plan and the risk register, they're foundational inputs that give you the boundaries, constraints, and threats you absolutely have to manage. Second, pillar 2, tools are the processors. These are the active engines, things like make-or-buy analysis, proposal evaluations. These are the actual mechanisms that process your raw project needs and transform them into concrete, strategic procurement actions. Third, and this is critical for the exam, remember the timing. You do not select a vendor during the planning phase. Planning is all about how you will select them. The actual selection is an output of the conduct procurements phase. It is a result of taking action. Pillar number 4, the control phase, is all about verification. You use tools like inspections and audits for one main reason: to make absolutely sure that what the seller delivers perfectly matches what was specified in that contract. No more, no less. And finally, pillar 5, the change request, is the governor. Think of it like a governor on an engine that regulates performance. It's your primary course correction tool. Anytime the seller's performance starts to deviate from the plan, a formal change request is the output you use to bring the project back into alignment. So there you have it. You've seen how shifting your mindset from memorization to understanding the why behind it all unlocks the entire procurement process. ITTOs aren't just random lists. They are a logical, predictable flow of information. So the real question is, now that you get the flow, how are you going to apply this logic not just to pass the exam, but to better manage your next real-world project? And how can you apply it to every other knowledge area you tackle?